I'm privileged to be the one currently chairing the Education and Training Committee, which is a committee amongst other factional committees of the Professional Association. And I'm really glad to have you join us today for this learning CPD session. If you know, we have lined up various CPD sessions that are scheduled to take place throughout the year as we look for learning opportunities for you professionals. And today, as scheduled, we had organized session revolving around the whole concept of digital media, which has as we know, has been a headache. We have been looking at some of the topical issues that were lined up for this year in digital marketing and the whole digital media and how to maneuver the space, especially for our industry, came out very strongly. So once again, I'd like to welcome you again to this webinar. We are hoping to know that we have started on time, also to finish on time, and most importantly, that it will be worthwhile for you to be around. Thank you so much. Without further ado, I will welcome our facilitator today. As we have designed this a little housekeeping, kindly unmute all your gadgets. So as I was saying, as we had envisioned this webinar to take place, it's not a lecture, it is a conversation, and we have our facilitator here with us. And since I'm not so competent to introduce him, I will invite him to introduce himself and continue. Thank you so much. Karibu sana, Mr. Muthuri.
Asante sana, Peter. I'm really happy to be here today evening speaking to industry colleagues. And most importantly, I think, as you've said, we are comparing notes with each other. We are here to see what's working and, learn from each other. In a bit of maybe a nutshell to introduce myself, I've been a tour operator in the industry previously, before joining Tripesa around the COVID pandemic around 2020. But before then, I did a number of things. I got into the industry by accident, and this is when Kenya Tourism Board put out a call for applications to the public, to inviting people to set up teams that would go around the country, documenting experiences and sharing that on the Magical Kenya social media channel. So that was back in 2016. And I put together a team, we won the bid, and that is what got me into the industry. So 7-8 years, maybe later, started a tour business called Turn Up Travel. Quickly under Turn Up Travel, we discovered the problem was, just beyond packaging. So we started a content agency within that. And this was predominantly meant to help travel trade, county governments, and other stakeholders in tourism capture or create content, distribute the same, and manage influencers. So we did that and collaborated with a range of stakeholders. Counties then were very nascent, and since tourism is a devolved function, they were just struggling with, how do you tell people what's in Turkana, what's in other parts of the country. And we did a lot of work going around the country, creating content, showcasing that online. Influencer marketing was also quite niche and nascent then. So we sort of had a framework on how brands would collaborate with the industry to create content that was compelling to audiences, but then also would convert. Now, fast forward, I joined Tripesa and as their country manager in Kenya, and my role there was to help the platform get into the Kenyan market. So, and at Tripesa, what we do is we are a software as a service business. And what that means is, sorry, I get my screens, is okay, is we help small tourism businesses digitize their operations, digitize, also get an inventory online, but above all, accept payments. So it's been a 2 or 3 year journey with Tripesa. We've worked again with small business owners. We've worked with event organizers. We've worked with county governments. Now we've had conversations with different stakeholders, both institutional and MSMEs. But the key proposition here is, you know, besides going online, are you on a platform that you have control over? Are you on a platform that you have a bit more flexibility on, you know, sometimes when you build a website, you get into this, you know, once the developer hands over, then you have to call them again if you need an update, if you need some changes done. And so Tripesa basically bridges that with a software as a service platform. So it's a subscription-based offering, annually, can be paid monthly and all that. But anyway, that's not the purpose of this conversation. I briefly want to talk about what we do. And this is, again, as I've mentioned, we create websites, digital marketplaces. You know, you can get this in form of a booking button integrated in your current website. But also on the B2B side, we also enable you to, you know, create itineraries. If you have, you know, if you are serving a conference and you need, you know, a one-off website that people can book transport, hotels, activities, tours, you can quickly create something in under 30 minutes and load your inventory and send that to your delegates. And then quickly, you know, because I think I look at tourism professionals not as techies. So, and I don't want this conversation to be very technical because I think the fundamentals of marketing are more about understanding consumers. And then the platforms come at a second level, or the tools that we use. So in a nutshell, this is Tripesa, sales channels, payment infrastructure, and a bit of like automation on your processes, things that would typically take 3 or 4 conversations, email on WhatsApp and all that. You're easily able to do that on Tripesa. So again, we're live in Kenya and Uganda with, you know, about 500 or so customers, and that's growing. And I want to maybe compile lessons that I've learned on this journey and previous engagements to sort of share what I've seen work in the digital marketing landscape. And hopefully then that can contextualize this conversation to also hear more from you on what you've experimented with and what you're also learning. So some of the challenges that we often come across is when people hear digital marketing is fast, people are excited, people are ready to go on there, people are ready to come online. So we are past the phase where people are like, is it necessary? So now is, you know, is it working? You know, and so one of the complaints that people will always say is, oh, we built a website, but we're not seeing bookings. We're on these platforms, OTAs, we're on social media, But is it really working? Should we stick with the old? Should we try new things? The second thing is human capital, and that has evolved. Back in 2012, when I was getting into the digital marketing space, people weren't really, anyone could be a guru. Anyone could tell you they know social media. Anyone could say they can make you trend. Anyone can say they can make you go viral. But really, who are the right people to work with? Are you hiring technical people that you add an extra layer of communication? Are you getting marketing? Or are you getting people from the tourism industry or with that training, and then sort of like training them for to understand digital marketing? So again, that is one of the things we'll discuss. The third thing is, of course, traffic, because again, this is digital real estate. If you create it, people may not always come. So there has to be like, what bees to nectar kind of scenario is people are always coming to consume content or interesting and helpful things. So again, traffic is also a factor. But then there is also, product development. When people are thinking of digital assets, whether these are applications, whether these are websites, whether these are marketplaces, there is always that conversation of, do we have in-house capacity? Should we outsource? Should we hire for that? How much will that cost? Is it worth it? And so there is always that conversation. Oftentimes people have also tried different things that haven't had maybe results. So there is always, say, a push and pull over the direction this takes. But also we see sometimes in certain places, there is also that knowledge gap where, because of the nature of how maybe a business is structured, the owners or the operators or the management may not quite well understand digital marketing as a space. And therefore, the appreciation or the trial of the same becomes the barrier. And ultimately, I think this comes down to, what works. Is this, should we stick with what we know? Should we try new things? Should we discard the old things because we've been told they no longer work? And lastly, it's about safety. Of course, in the e-commerce space, safety is a key consideration because you're talking about data, you're talking about information security. You've built a presence on a third-party platform. That platform could change its ways and policies, and you may lose your audience there. You may lose the customers you had there. They may discontinue. You've seen like big tech, whatever, discontinue certain products, and so that is also a key thing. The other thing that, of course, people ask is reputation, because these platforms also expose you to attacks online. You may be caught up with, a campaign that is not so positive. And so these are some of the things that hopefully we can unpack before the end of the session. Now, in terms of tourism, this is what the data we have. This is $35 billion, in terms of the market size. GDP contribution close to 10%, creates 24 million plus, I think, jobs. So it's a huge sector. But less than 20% of these transactions happen online. So I'm not saying that, even as we talk about digital marketing, it's worth knowing that, there are still people walking into our facilities to make bookings there. There are still people calling. There are still people asking their friends. There are still people who will pick up magazines, newspapers, and read about that. There are still people who will send an email. So when you're looking at digital marketing, it's also worth knowing that this is not just a silver bullet, but it's part of your toolkit. Marketing is broad. it has place, promotion, pricing, and other factors that before you're now getting your product, on these digital platforms, the fundamentals of the same or other things might influence the success that you get on the digital space. One, of course, being pricing, the second being your location, the third being the targeting, like, do you understand your customer well, and have you developed the right and relevant products or experiences for them? Where do you find these customers? Because sometimes we might be following, fads, like TikTok is popular, so let's get on there. So it's also very keen to understand where your customers are at. And also the nature of the business you do, and how people book. Because I think we say a customer is king, then context is the queen. Because besides, knowing your customer, you have to also understand where to find them. So if part of your business is B2B and people prefer to buy through expos, or if people prefer to physical meetings or that one-on-one interaction, that's what you kind of design for. Now, in my journey, I've been part of different entities. One is being Wanderlust Diaries, where I help them with travel, trade liaison and partnerships. This is a community of travelers. We are right now, I think, at around 500,000. It's on Facebook predominantly, but has grown. And it's been an interesting journey because the essence of why this was formed was to give Kenyans a platform to share their travel stories during COVID, during the lockdown period. So we've gotten to learn, discover, but mostly give people a chance to voice and share their experiences. The key reason behind this was, how do we get to, know of places? How do we get to appreciate domestic tourism when, so the idea behind it was to kind of also advocate for certain changes on the industry. And we've had quite a number of successes with that, and building a community that's consistently traveling and sharing their stories on there. I've also run a content agency that has done content for hotels, airlines, counties, as I've mentioned, and worked with a lot of influencers. So again, some of the things that I'll talk to will be mostly, how do you create content? What are the partnership models around that? Because again, we understand the need for the content, but creating content can be expensive. It can be, it can be tasking. And sometimes you might create content that's not as immersive, it's not catchy. So how do you go about that? And of course, Tripesa, as I've talked about, where this is a Shopify type of platform that allows you to digitize your operations and list your inventory. So briefly, the very first thing I did when I got into the industry was, again, just around the Kenya Tourism Board's work, was we had a partnership with Heritage Hotels. And this was, I think, 2016, November, thereabouts. So Voyager Beach hosted us. These are few friends, but they were bloggers then, travel bloggers. And the idea for this trip was to showcase Mombasa in a new light. Of course, people know what Mombasa is popular for, but Heritage also wanted to create sort of extensions, because as people are considering where to go, they also consider the things to do. At times when we are, as hoteliers or maybe as airlines, we want to just push our own offers, but forgetting that people are making decisions on where to go based on the information they have on the destination in its entirety. So how to get there, where to stay, what to do, what to see, and most importantly, I think, what to create, because the new age traveler is also looking at travel as a way of creating and sharing stories. So we partnered with Heritage, spent a weekend in Mombasa. This was when I think Chris Brown was around, was in the coast, Wizkid and all that. We created so much buzz, around Mombasa, and it was a huge success. By success, what do I mean? Besides digital success, there is content that then allows you to actually get actual bookings, because people have now kind of seen the destination through the eyes of, or through your property, or through your brand. So they associate those experiences and they want to come to the source. So you not only get the billboard effect of course, your destination in good spotlight, but you also get to have people who associate all that vibe, experiences with your facility. Of course, as a facility, you're selling maybe, rooms, conferencing. These activities are secondary, but they are such key elements when people are considering where to go. So this is just one of the case studies that has been a huge success, and still, I think, continues to redefine the kind of work we do. Now, the thing with user-generated content is you have to create Instagrammable experiences. When it comes to sometimes some of the itineraries we give to guests, the timings we give them, so there is a traveler who wants to wake up, catch the sunrise, document that. So they are shooting, against a sunrise to sunset kind of a day in Mombasa, a day in Nairobi. What can you do? This photo on the left here is the place in Watamu. It's very popular. I think everyone who's been to Leech House has taken a photo on these places, on this place. And the reason for that is you have to think of where in my property, or where do I have spaces? Do I have experiences that trigger someone to snap and share? Do I have, travelers will always follow a bucket list sometimes. So if they're in a particular region or a destination or property, they also want to take, say, a photo that someone else took and say, I was also here. And you have to, when you're thinking about design, when you're thinking about experiences, add that human element. How would someone, use that space? How does light behave around this place? And such things. The second thing is, of course, you can always prompt people to do reviews and share testimonials. And these has, of course, been very powerful, because travelers are also, when considering places, they are always looking at reviews and testimonials. It's also key because they want to hear of authentic experiences, both sometimes good and bad. And the key thing is this gives us reputation. A property or a brand should also have its hashtag, and that because it allows them to continuously or consistently create and organize their content in a way that it is searchable. Recommended to just have one, so that then you don't have, that split across. I've seen some places that have resident photographers or creators to just help, people, with their content. I know of facilities that are very popular, maybe with creators, just because of how the architecture looks, or how the, it's just friendly, for people to shoot. And this is also when you're looking at this both as 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 a facility, perhaps, or as a brand or an airline or anything, is, do your terms and policies allow people to create content around this place? What are some of the, do people need to write to get permissions? Of course, there are other places that are locations, so people have to pay to use them, for example. But again, it's very critical to prompt people to create around the canvas that you've provided them. The other element is having a blog. And I know because we host bloggers, you might feel like maybe your content and reviews sitting in other places is also okay, which is fine. But also having your own blog allows you to invite people to also publish on there. It allows your marketing team to also, do stories, do their own interviews, talk about interesting things that have happened at with your blog. Again, you have to look at your audiences as not just travelers, but other stakeholders that also want to learn more about your business, sustainability practices, key things. Some are investors or potential partners. And so you have a blog to encourage people to share, especially your team knowledge. You also have various expertise in-house. So one could be, someone who talks about like financial management when you're planning for travel. Someone could be like tips for, first-time hikers. Others could be how to experience certain destination in a budget. All these things, things that travelers, because again, a traveler is not just Googling the name of your property. They're looking for useful content like Diani on a budget or certain other elements, And lastly, I think I've seen social media takeovers where you invite maybe key opinion leaders or celebrities to take over your social media, and interact with your audience. This, of course, might be for a weekend, for a week, but then it gives them an opportunity to add some flavor to whatever it is that you're doing. So again, when looking at influencer marketing, there are key things that or approaches. One, you have to actually select the right ones at the beginning. And the second thing is ensure they understand your KPIs, or at least they know your business. Because sometimes someone might come around your property, your facility, something else, and they're just taking selfies, they're flossing. They are not really educating their audiences. So what you have is people who are just, giving likes, comments on what someone wore. And it kind of course is not so much tied on where they were at, and or the person reading this is not, they know how much this place costs. And sometimes influencers, we work with them and they don't even know the rates of some of the experiences they've been given for free. And that makes them weaker brand advocates because they might not be able to, respond in the right way. But then the other thing is you have to allow them to continue publishing in their own authentic ways. We've seen sometimes where people have been asked to, send content to, the brand team to go through before it's published. It's okay, of course, for, to ensure it's factual and all that. But again, you don't want them to lose their voice. You don't want them to speak in a tone that is not what they use regularly. But also above all, you want them to connect with their audiences in the way that they normally do whenever they are, because that's why you've hired them or you're working with them. So key thing, ensure you get the right people. Second one is ensure they are very well briefed. You've done a brand immersion exercise so that they know your brand, your tone, your ethos, your history. They are well educated about what you do. Because sometimes it's not just sharing, or you have a new wine, or you have a new restaurant, or you have a new something, but also understanding where you're coming from, your sustainability agenda, and other elements of the business that helps them now articulate your proposition in a more holistic way and touches on multiple touch points. So this is an example of some work we did with Jambojet just around COVID period, which was the Now Travel Ready campaign, where we went around their destinations with a content production crew, and it was just documenting things to do around those places. This was a market recovery campaign that was very successful. But the key thing that people always ask me is, how do you measure the success? How do you know? Besides, of course, you've produced videos, you've taken photos, you've maybe been a top trend. What does that mean to the brand? Is it now in a consideration set? When people are going that direction, do people know how to book? Where will people book? So it's good to also have that digital ecosystem in place where if, before now you do like a campaign with influencers, ensure your website is updated with the current rates, ensure some of those new experiences are on there, because you're triggering some intent to purchase, and not everyone will purchase immediately. They want to be immersed further. They are now part and parcel of that purchase journey. So they're coming in, of course, they consider destination, mode of getting there, where to stay. They might now start looking at who can we go with, when is the best time to go there, what are some of the family-friendly activities maybe to do, and such things. So sometimes there is always a gap between the content, the conversations, and the commerce. It doesn't mean all is lost, because again, with digital content, it's now permanently on the digital space, and people will use that when they are searching for travel now and in future. They might use that when they are comparing between two options, but also they might sorry anyone else who also looking at maybe collaborating with your brand, they might also be able to see what you've done and give you a differentiated kind of proposition. So it's always never lost. So when it comes to influencer marketing, as I said, get the right key opinion leaders. Anyone with an audience, whether online, offline, will help you reach particular demographics. So don't always think of influencers as the people with 1 million followers, the famous celebrities. It could be, if you're trying to target chamas, you could look at, some of the chamas and get their leaders. If you're trying to sell to some associations or organized groups like, the lawyers or doctors, you could get specific KOLs in that help you reach that, demographic. If you're creating content for new moms, you of course need to get people who are, already speaking to that niche, perhaps. And that's the same thing with, different types, if it's business travel, leisure, medical, budget to luxury, you have to get influencers that have already been publishing content around those thematic areas, so that you just don't get, there's always a lot of wasted media when you get the wrong influencers, because they are sharing the right message but to the wrong audience. Again, as I've said, ensure you do some brand immersion and spend like an afternoon with them. That's basically talking through what you do, how you do it, ensure they understand the brand very well. And it enables you to to retain your reputation. It also ensures the message is consistent, especially when you're working with different influencers, but also they understand what you're trying to achieve. Because quite often people might be in a campaign, but they are very different. Someone wants to just shoot food, but they are not tagging your restaurants. They're not talking about you know, how to get there, when, you know, all those things. But they've created F&B content, and they've posted, and they've maybe tagged the location, but they've not really communicated exactly what you are promoting. So it's good to ensure you just do some proper onboarding and contracts, because again, we've seen brands where an influencer does the work, but there is a misalignment of expectations. You know, someone says, "Oh, I did the work, I was never paid." Someone else says, "I was, they didn't do the job properly." So contracts will help you a lot when it comes to, you know, dispute resolution. But the other thing is ensure that these experiences resonate well with their audience. I've seen cases where people have created experiences, but they are not, the advocates they got were not the right people to push that thing, you know. So just because someone is popular, it doesn't make them the right person or persona. You have to start with, who am I trying to get through these doors or through my channels to book, to consider us? Do you have the personas of those customers? Do you understand where they are at, how old they are, how much they spend? Because this is the information you now put towards that briefing or brand immersion exercise. Content always has to have a call to action. Otherwise, it's just content online. It's, you know, you watch a nice, beautiful video, but it's not told you what to do with that, you know. So there has to always be a call to action, and ensure it's very clear. Where does it point people to? Is it to a website? Is it to, you know, where are you pointing these people? Where are you driving these new eyeballs? And then just ensure that you're also working on long-term partnerships. You know, influencers will always come around and say, you know, we want to work with you, we want to do this. Fair and good. But again, ensure that maybe you've picked some that you can work with over a long period of time, so that also people build that association with your brand. And what also that does is the authenticity. People start saying, you know, certain people talk consistently about a certain brand. Because again, travelers also don't want to feel like they are consistently being marketed at. They don't want to feel like these influencers did not give them authentic, the real thing, because they're either hosted for free or paid. And when you also work with long-term partners with creators, it allows you to leverage or at least get some work done, sometimes for free or for pro bono. But also you have people who genuinely love your brand, and they will advocate for it, whether offline. They will recommend it in other spaces, not just on the digital space. So always think long term, because again, maybe someone now has, say, a baby. You're working with a family. They've ushered a new baby, but they still continue creating content around family and travel and all that. You could continually work with them to, you know, and because if you have multiple facilities or different experiences, they would be the best, because people have sort of like formed, you know, they've been following their journey. Now, the second thing is mostly around formats. And as I said, content production can be expensive. So if you're planning a shoot around your property or around your brand, think in terms of who are our customers? What are the demographics? So when you're planning that production, maybe during low season or during good weather, have the subjects and models that speak to that entire, you know, you're creating content around romance, you know, for Valentine's, family, for Easter and other periods. You're creating content around sustainability. You also want to showcase a bit of what you're doing around the community. So if you're doing it, it's worthwhile to have, because if you're shooting a dining scene, it could have a couple. If you add a kid on there, it becomes, a young family. If you add on a senior citizen, it becomes a multi-generational kind of travel. If you add on, or if you switch and you have a Muslim, you could target that particular whatever around their religious holidays, for example. If you add now, let's say a group, could be a group of friends. So always think, because when you come and create content, say for Valentine, you come around again and create for Easter, it takes time, it takes some resources, but then you keep coming back to the management with the same requests, and sometimes they've not seen the results of the other. So if you're going in, you can optimize that production budget and schedule to do a bit more with more subjects, and play around with those models when you're designing your short list, so that you create content that has longevity. It becomes content that you can use for the next 3 years. So, and you can use that on your pamphlets, you can use that on your digital space. Always look at digital as part of, a bigger plan. So if you're going to create content for digital, see how it supports, your exhibitions that you go to. See how it supports other collateral that you need, for example. So if you're able to create content that you can use over a longer period, then the better. The second thing is you also have to think of what works for which platforms. So if you've shot videos, you might, cut 15 to 30 seconds for Instagram stories, for TikTok, for WhatsApps, even for the sales team when to forward to interested, buyers. So the other thing there is even images, you could create GIFs out of them. You could create boomerangs. So always think in terms of, yes, we have a photographer and a videographer here, but what else could they give us besides a 2-minute video and a link with images? So when you're developing that brief, then they can give you content that works for a social media content calendar. So if you needed to have like 5 GIFs, 2 or 3 videos, always think in terms of where you're placing it, so that you create content that travels further, because at times you get 300 images, 1 video, it's posted, and then the campaign is done. So always edit for those scenarios of use cases. Short form content, of course, is always stickier because people's attention spans has slightly gotten lower because of the distractions and digital noise. So if you can, the shorter the content, the better. The more lower MB it is, also the better. Of course, if you're shooting a TV commercial, it has to be HD content, it has to be longer. There is a space for a documentary, especially when you're, going to certain audiences. There will be content that's a bit longer, maybe because it needs to cover the brand, the community, has interviews and all that. There is space for that. But in the digital space, people want to quickly, get the message delivered. 15 to 30 seconds. Think of when you're holding your phone in the evening, you're scrolling through. If something is heavy, you will not download it with your data. You probably want to use Wi-Fi in the office when you go next day, but you've also forgotten about it, so you might never go back to it. But if it's something short, catchy, entertaining, but also compelling in terms of the messaging, then you'll watch it. Again, ensure that content is optimized for instant messaging platforms, because a lot of the conversations are happening on these platforms. So when you create it, share it on those platforms as well. The third element, of course, is what I talked about, which is KPIs, and ensuring that your influencers understand the business outcomes that you're pushing for. So if it's occupancy, if it's ticket sales, so beyond the trending, beyond the likes, beyond the, because if you have a conference coming up and you're trying to sell tickets, really the ROI you want to get is, have I been able to increase my sales? If you're pushing rooms, for a particular season, it's low season, and you're trying to create some demand, ensure that they understand that beyond posting that photo, beyond doing a skit, that, there are certain business outcomes that you're also pursuing. And that allows them to also create content with that mindset, with the right call to action, but also with the right intention, so that they're not just there enjoying themselves, but they know there is a key element that you also want to see out of that engagement. The other thing, as I said, immersion, very important, because people often, start building, start creating before they really understand why they are doing so. And that gives you a lot of problems later on when you're now looking at the content, sending changes, reviewing how our website looks like. So ensure in the beginning you spend some time on, like a process, just to ensure expectations are aligned, outputs are well documented, but also the outcomes that you're pursuing. And other things you can do is you can give them like short URLs, you can give them particular codes that they can send to their community, or other mechanisms that would allow you to measure the success of that particular campaign. The key thing here is influencers are your success partners. So they are not just giving you visibility, but they're also helping you reach the customers that are on their channels. And they're also pulling them towards your brand. So ensure that that, layer is very clear in the call to actions. Now, when it comes to, of course, doing this content or working with influencers, I've seen it's necessary because, again, farm trips are easier to pitch the business, because you can always say, this is why we need to host agents or tour operators. They give us business. But on there, have someone creating content, have someone documenting these experiences. Say, could we have a few creators come on this trip as well? And they can give us an extra layer. It might be easier that way as opposed to pitching a complete influencer trip at the beginning. And this is how you kind of get buy-in from what people are used to buying or paying for or approving, with a bit of hybrid scenario, but with some extra sauce that also gives them, so when people find the initiative successful, they'll also now kind of like see, okay, there was this extra thing that we had there that made this experience more interesting. But also because your consumers are not just booking through the tour operators and travel agents, they are increasingly turning to these influencers as sort of gatekeepers of, or at least curators of the information they are looking when it comes to making travel decisions. So again, several ways of doing that. You can collaborate with a county government. You can do it as a brand and bring your partners on there. You can do it as a hotel and, plug your suppliers on the campaign. You can collaborate with a tourism association, whether regional, national, and again, where the members contribute in kind to the success of that initiative. Or sometimes you could collaborate as just travel trade and, say, we're interested in opening up a particular region and we want to work with the professionals. And this allows you now to, take that shared success, but also put resources together, makes it cheaper for everyone, sort of a scenario where everyone kind of goes home happy, where, the destination has a lot more spotlight. You've profiled the suppliers or the partners in that destination, so people have discovered who they could work with. But also people have discovered a range of potential partners when it comes to, packaging that destination. So these are some of the things we've done in the past. But again, the key thing is when you're looking at content, don't look at it in isolation. You have to think of where these stories are ending up. Who's doing a blog, who's gonna do a blog, who's doing a newspaper article, who will have an edit in a news cut on TV, who's publishing for a travel magazine that's, distributed, in certain locations, or it's an in-flight magazine. So have that mix of people so that you're not just, speaking to a particular audience on, Instagram only. So that the initiative and the destination or the brand has a lot more exposure to different audiences. And that allows you to now kind of, if your GM is happy when they see, you in the papers, they kind of feel like, the work was done. If someone else, is looking at the digital space and they are seeing like the hashtag is among the top, they feel like, money well spent. If someone was watching TV and they see them something about, the brand or the destination and the work you've been doing, they'll kind of feel like the mission was accomplished. So always be able to manage those particular motivations or interests internally, because at times when people don't know how to measure something, they don't allocate the resources. Now, in terms of expertise, I would always say get people who are passionate about digital marketing. The skills can always be learned. It's very different when now you get people who aren't very interested and you try training them. So, and they don't have to be, there is a misconception that these people have to be young people. Sometimes some of the best digital marketers are people with a particular background. They were either in IT, now they learned a bit of marketing, and so now they understand the consumer, or they were communication. Now they're learning about these new platforms. And so, because the fundamentals of this are always the same, it's the application that is changing, and the tools will change. A while back, maybe a decade ago, we were all on Facebook. Some people have remained there. Others are on Twitter. Others are on TikTok. Others are on other platforms. So it's always interesting to know that platforms will always evolve. So don't be so fixated on the platform, but get the people who are passionate, because they'll then be able to evolve. And you can develop them through training. You can develop them through, various sessions like this, for example, or online webinars and all these other things where people can learn new things. Before also getting agencies, it's worth knowing particularly the scope of work, that you're outsourcing. Community management can always be done in-house, whether that includes social media management, customer service, newsletters, all those things can be done in-house. So when the agency is coming on, Maybe they are helping you with more technical stuff, or maybe they are helping you with production related work. So always assess what you have and what you need. But it can be quite chaotic when you now get people, third party, external to the organization, and you're not very clear about what you're looking for. And then you bring all these people, the confusion then further escalates. But if you have, in-house people, in-house teams always, I think, should be empowered to do more, and with the resources. Again, with digital marketing, you may have to, start without budget. And that means, someone has a phone, they can take some photos around the property, or, you can do a lot when you don't have to, So once you get those skills, if it's a digital marketing executive, they can, go do a short video, publish it. They can take some photos, such and such things. So again, content doesn't have to be always scripted. Do this, take one, take two. Sometimes, people just want that authenticity. It doesn't mean the content doesn't have to be good. It also means, if someone has, has passed by your facility, you don't have time to go look for a photographer or commission one to come and do a photo shoot. You have to just use what you have. So let's empower these teams to make those decisions, but of course with to remain within the boundaries of the policies that you have in place around privacy, around other things, because that's also the other area of how much should we document, how much should we share, what could be problematic, and other things. My recommendation is always to do at least 3 platforms if you've been at it. If you're just starting, 1 to 2 is fine. Whether that's Instagram, or Twitter, or Facebook. But again, start with knowing where your customer is at, or who your customer is. That will then define where you're going to focus yourself. If you have a platform that, if you have a demographic that's a lot more mature, of course you can double down on Facebook, because that audience is on there. If you have a younger, affinity, but then again, what happens is with our brands, you have consumers across ages, you have consumers across locations, you have consumers across races, continents. So again, you can also publish in, if you are looking at the Chinese market, you could consider being on WeChat, because that's where your customer perhaps is looking at. So again, the key thing around 3 or 4 is to ensure you're also not spreading yourself too thin, so that it's not, again, we are not consistent, or we didn't post on this last week, and other things. Instant messaging, again, these are like your WhatsApps, Messenger, platforms that have that chat functionality, because they are now driving a lot of commerce, because they are more direct, you're able to get feedback and eyeballs, and it's private. I would always use Canva for graphic design if you're just getting started, or thinking, should we hire a designer? Should we, you can always work, do your templates on Canva. You can do copy AI to generate digital marketing copy, MailChimp for mailing, for your newsletters. These are simple to use tools. Now, in terms of SEO, always remember with content, it's not about what you have to say, it's what people are looking for, you know. So you have to, you know, first search for, you know, the keywords that people are using to look for information, and ensure the content on your website is rich in those keywords. Optimize that content again. And some of the ways here is to have, you know, those keywords repeated, you know, if you've published a blog, or if you're, you know, doing copy around, you know, the website, is to ensure that those keywords are repeated in different pages, so that your ranking is, you rank for those keywords. So if it's Diani, luxury, or say Mombasa, budget, transport, such and such things. Meta descriptions, again, ensure that your content is also tagged properly. You might create a nice video, but it's not well defined or well described, and so it may mean that people will not find it because it's not doing well on search. Keyword rich headers, again, ensure that, you know, your subjects, whether these are on email, whether these are on blogs or anything else, that it's very well, you know, you have keywords to ensure that, you know, when someone is looking for content, you're on like page 1 or 2, at least you are ranking for certain things, because that is what now drives website traffic, then drives visitors to your website, then they can see a lot more of what you're doing. Again, compress your images so that they allow your website to load faster. Ensure you label those images clearly, so that, again, especially maybe for people, alternative text is for persons like maybe low vision, people who are searching by, you know, alternative text. So again, your audience is not just, they could be people with like visual impairment. They could be people who are searching by image, because maybe either they are deaf, they are reading captions on the video. So again, inclusion is very key. Think of whoever is consuming this content. Maybe they want to listen, they want to read. You know, is this content that you've published finding them? The other thing, of course, whenever you host journalists or any other publishers, ensure they give you backlinks to your website. And this allows you to tap into their audience. Of course, share that content on your social media channels as well. Google ecosystem is very key, you know, because this is what we are using for location, for search, and it also indexes our content. So again, you know, update your Google for business. But then with content, just always have a calendar and have, you know, that freshness. That's why I was saying, when you're producing content, always follow a calendar, or at least know you're not just taking photos, you're taking photos that will help you communicate a certain number of things with this frequency on these particular days, and such kind of thing. When you have that at the back of your mind, then you know the kind of image you're going for, you know when the right image to use. But most importantly, you can reuse and repurpose content. Again, when you're doing like video, take your B-roll, you might be able to stitch another video out of the same material without necessarily calling another videographer to come and shoot. You know, so always think long term, always, you know, so when you create a program, an itinerary, you know, we have these 2 meeting rooms, conferences, we have these and these amenities. How do people interact with them? How do people use them? When do they use them? Who uses them? So again, you know, who are your source markets? And you're able to then have the right people that represent those demographics. So always, I think, start, you know, before implementing anything on digital, start by understanding the customer and the message. From there, where you apply it, how you apply it are secondary factors. Because even if you're doing the right thing on digital, but, you know, sometimes speaking to the wrong audience or speaking the wrong message, it still might not give you the results you're looking for. So again, I think maybe I would like to take a break or pause at this point, maybe get some reactions. But this is a photo that perhaps launched now a successful business. It was an image of just fish and ugali posted online, and it propelled Big Fish to, I think, the current success. I think they have now 3 branches. So again, it's not just luck, but sometimes luck plays a role. But then in social media, you will have these moments where content goes viral. So you have to always be ready. You always have to continually create. But above all, always ensure you're driving content with a call to action, because you may see this photo, but it was clearly captioned that I've opened a restaurant. It's at this place and I sell fish. Please come and patronize my business. So while it was a catchy photo, delicious looking food, maybe met people when they were hungry around noon, it still communicated where if you wanted something similar, you could get it. So always keep in mind. Peter?
Yes, thank you so much. Wow, that's very eye-opening. And I know you are speaking to most of us and the things that we go through. I would like to encourage participants to drop questions in the chat. I will as well, because as I said, we're going to use the first 1 hour, to go through these fundamentals, and the second hour, it will be a lot of engagement. And I know you have so many questions, a lot of experiences to share. Yeah, actually, we are looking forward for such, things that have actually worked for you, that you thought, is a hack that you can even share with other professionals. And quickly looking into my chat, the first question, as people ponder about the question that Mr. Muthuri has raised, the social media work, is from Robert Kemani. And Mr. Robert Kemani is asking, where can we get information about demographics using social media platforms? Where do you get such information about the demographics? And as you think about that, the second one is, how can one leverage on the social media algorithm to have great reach, in terms of engagement and conversion? Thank you so much. Keep raising your hands, keep posting them. Be sure that I'm going to give everyone a chance. Thank you so much.
So again, if you're in the Meta ecosystem, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook especially gives you insights on your audience. It will tell you their age, it will tell you their location, it will tell you their gender. It will tell you their, when they are active, perhaps. So it's, and the second thing is also, always remember the business model of these platforms is advertising. So they will not give you as much organic reach because they want you to advertise to boost that reach. And this is where the content comes into play. Because if the content is eye-catching, it's compelling, it's interesting, people will find it, people will share it, people will interact with it. And what that algorithm does is it keeps propping it to more people, like the people who are viewing it. Of course, you can do targeting by advertising, but I would always assume you don't have the resources. But remember, with social media, people who are booking travel, of course, are looking at different stages. There are those who are at the inspiration level, who just, see a nice photo of a sunrise, a nice photo of a couple enjoying a beach walk, and they're like, yeah, it triggers a certain emotional response. There might be people, depending on the season, they want to go and, relax, or they want to go catch the migration. So always think of what's the purpose of the travel is, and the second thing, what's the job to be done. The reason I say that is, people are traveling to maybe reconnect with their partners, treat their kids to, at over the school holidays. They want to book, a flight, but then they want to know if they can pay in installments and such things. These are some of the questions. So your content has to not only be catchy, but it also has to be informative. What is the problem this consumer is trying to solve? And how does your product or service experience meet that? How do they book it? When can they use? When can they come? And such things. So I believe each and every business has some sort of like, this is our target market. If you've been around for a while, you've understood how seasonality affects you and other elements, so you're not completely starting from scratch. You may have content that, of course, goes further to a particular niche, or you find that but a particular demographic is interacting with this kind of. That's why I talked about multi-platform, multimedia on the content formats, because there may be people who want to consume short format content. There are people who want to go read a blog. There are people who are okay watching a 2 or 3 minute video on a TV screen on YouTube. So, but platforms, because they are advertising-led businesses, will always give you, as the community manager or business owner, tools to know the demographics. So that's Facebook Insights, if you're on the Facebook ecosystem. All of these have, an element that allows you to know who you currently have. Even sometimes when they're online, so on particular days, when are the best days to do certain things. And that will help you create your calendar better. If your emails are not being read on Mondays, perhaps you could, send out your newsletters on Wednesdays. You could play around that. If you see Wednesday is not performing, you could, send maybe in batches, and you'll see, you learn something when you now see what are my open rates when we send on Monday, or when we send to our corporate clients on Wednesdays, or when we send to people who booked leisure over the last 2 years. Are they still, hooked on the brand, or, they stayed with us and moved on and they don't want to hear from us again? So also, as you're creating, understand that your audience is at different levels. Some have already stayed with you, some have already utilized your service, others are considering to do, others have never heard of you, So these will be people who need different triggers and call to actions.
Wonderful. Wow, thank you so much. The questions are coming in numbers, and before I read them, I had seen a hand. Was it from who had raised a hand? I can't see it on my screen, but I would like to give you a chance to ask the question verbally. Yeah, this is an engagement, and okay. If you are ready, just let me know. And quickly to the questions. I don't know whether Muthuri can read them from your side, but there, wait a minute. Yes. Dana is asking, what would be a reasonable budget for social media campaign for a small business? Just a figure that you can probably say, for me to run a successful campaign, do I need 30,000? Do I need 40? Do I need 10? And what is a reasonable budget? And Lucy is, is concerned. What are the risks involved in using influencers? Actually, do you have a case where an influencer marketing went south, and probably, professionals might consider that as a risk, and how do you mitigate that? And Ivy is asking about reactions that are based on fake news. How do we watch out for that? And how do we notice this? Probably you can just comment on the same. Yeah, and Judy wants to know, how does Tripesa work? Probably, yeah, that is a tool, and it is good that people come out of this webinar with a tool that, is a functional tool that they can use, and probably you can highlight also some of the success stories. Yeah, maybe you can answer those, and then we do another round of questions.
I think to the question around budgets is, you can set the budget either as a percentage of sales. So you say maybe I'll allocate 3% to digital efforts, for example, of your turnover. Each and every business has a customer acquisition cost. So if that for you is $10 and you're looking to acquire maybe 300 customers for this month, it's that $10 times 300. You start with a business objective, not, of course, the platform wants you to spend more. Anyone who comes around with a proposal also wants you to spend money. So it has to be either what you can afford at that point, which is either a percentage of sales, or you've come around a certain figure that this is what it costs me to acquire a customer. So if my room is 10,000, it could be, my CAC cost would be, say, 10% of that. And based on the occupancy you're looking to have, you multiply by that. But I would say experiment, because digital media is not like a billboard that you're told it's 100K, so you have to pay that to be on there. Digital marketing allows you to go on Facebook and say, I have $5 and I want to boost this post for one day. And you can see the reaction. It allows you to choose if you want to get more leads on WhatsApp, allows you to say you want to get more clicks on your website and such things. The key thing is experiment and then double down. You know, I think the question around budget is one subjective one. You know, you have a brand that has maybe $10,000 and that's what they spend monthly. You have someone else who doesn't have budget. So when it comes to resources, start with, again, resources are, you know, you have human capital, you have some social capital, you have. So start with that. The second thing, you know, your friends could share this content. You could amplify what you're trying to do. But anywhere between 10K to 30, think of it from, if you're to hire a social media executive for a month, how much would you pay them? You know? So if that figure is 45,000, and you're able to, you know, you have some skills to be able to do some digital marketing on your own with, and do some media buying. You have a designer who can do your flyers. You've gotten a photographer, maybe you can come and do a quick shoot. So you have a library of content that the designer can use. Look at it holistically. It's not just what we spend on the platform, but do you have the right content, the collateral, and then the placement? And then from there, look at budget that way. Because oftentimes you know, you have someone who's running a Facebook campaign, but it's, you know, it's pointing to a broken website where they forgot to renew the domain. So ensure that is in place, and then spend what you'd spend to pay someone to do. If you are to hire someone, I think as a small business, that's how I look at it. Now, to questions around adverse reactions to fake news. I've seen, like, recently some 2 airlines issue, you know, position statements, you know, because sometimes you could be at the, you know, somewhere, a issue has come up, people are recording, an accident has happened, all these things happen. So the fundamental thing, of course, is to have a crisis management plan in place behind it. You may also take time because sometimes, you know, you want to have, you know, the right facts. You can listen in fast. Of course, you might feel helpless because these are things that have escalated, but you also want to communicate authoritatively, not just reacting to, you know, what people are saying. Of course, I've seen sometimes people use influencers to try and, especially if you are on the wrong, to try and cleanse that. But unfortunately, people have to sort of form an opinion, and you have a recovery period. There is someone who saw the video, and they did not come back to your page to see your position on the same. So you can only take that as a learning opportunity. And you know, however, my thoughts on this are, first, of course, investigate, have the factual information. It's the truth, you know. If there is need to apologize, you can do the same. But by the time people are getting online, what I always say is, an angry customer has also given you some opportunities to address this sometimes offline. So they either never felt heard or listened to or acknowledged. So it's good to empower your frontliners on how to de-escalate some of those situations, because most of them boil over to the online space because not of malicious intent, but sometimes it's people feel like they were disrespected. There are all these isms where someone feels, is it because I'm Black? Is it because I'm female? Is it because I'm a person with disability? Because it's very subjective. So, and sometimes you cannot erase that assumption of bias, you know. But at sometimes people just also spread, you know, you may wake up and find a hashtag, you know. Right now, people are calling out businesses, you know. So there is really no one way of saying this, but of course, in your communication plan, always have a crisis management, you know, or even do some media training if you ever need to have a spokesperson to speak on behalf of the company, you know, such and such things. Because at times, you know, things quickly escalate, you know, and you are never ready for such, you know, someone has had an accident in your facility and such, you know. But for fake news, again, you can always debunk the fake news and say, this is fake. You know, this didn't come from us, and you use the same channels to respond. And, you know, that's the right thing to do. Are there influencer campaigns that go wrong? Yes. And sometimes because you're working with personalities, and these personalities have other lives beyond what they've done with you, you know, there might be some blowback, you know, sometimes to the brand. It doesn't entirely mean, you know, you could have hosted people as, you know, a couple. They've split up, or some allegations have come off that someone was abusive, you know, and they are affiliated with your business. You know, you can't take a side there, you can't speak to that. You just have to let it die down, you know. There are all these other things that people expect you to, but the thing is, you have to do your scrutiny. The same way you are hiring people is the same way you engage influencers. You do their background checks. You ask them for a list of other places they've worked with, call these guys and see, you know, how is it working with these people or this individual? It's, you know, check around their work, you know. Some people also are very successful online, but quite sometimes, you know, difficult to work with at a human level collaboratively, you know. So you have to look at not just what they're doing, but also how you can work together. If someone has, you know, in the past called out their clients, dragged their names online because of a minor issue, they will also do the same when you get into that level, you know. I'm not, but the more you do in the before, you know, when I was talking about like briefing, onboarding, all those things, the more you align things at that space, the easier it is to do the campaign and to do the reporting. And at that point, people are very clear on what is expected of them. If they needed a deposit, it's been provided. If they needed certain things, you have arranged with other people in departments to ensure it's ready and all that. But yeah, campaigns have, you know, the digital space is fluid, you know, so your influencers, and that's why you need to build that long-term partnership. Because when you pick every other person that is interested to work with you, they might also have some baggage that comes with that. So consistency, I think, is key over. You don't have to take on every other opportunity, you know. But also at the end, it's. I always say there is also the gut instinct of, you know, do you really want to, you know, work with these people? Sometimes it's not just what they're offering, you know, are they the right fit? And that's okay as well, you know. Should there be some adverse or negative, whatever? Again, the same crisis management protocol takes forever. But I would always believe anything can be addressed offline before it blows online. But if it's something they've done, you know, in their lives outside of your property, then you can distance yourself from that. But I think we are all human, people will have their days. I think we always say every brand has a bad day on these spaces. So you're never too sure when your silence is also construed as, there are creators who have not said anything about the finance bill, and people have said, why are you not talking about this? We don't want to watch your shows right now. So they're also in a problem, for not doing anything, for not taking a stand. The other things, like when it comes to tricky things like Black Lives Matter, do you want to really jump into that or create stuff around that, or give a position? It could go well, it could go badly,
Wonderful. Yeah, there was the last one about Tripesa and how it works with SMEs. And maybe you can combine that with, I know you had commented about how to measure the impact of a digital marketing campaign, whether there are links, and actually in line with that, I could also ask you whether, now that you are using an influencer, you are using a campaign, do you have tools that, for instance, you can be able to measure that these bookings actually came, from the link that was shared by this influencer or by this campaign? I just wanted to combine several so that you can tackle them together. In this digital marketing, do you know activities like handing out flyers, and brochures, do they still resort into conversion? One of the professionals is asking whether, is that completely dead, or there's still space for flyers and brochures? And probably you can combine that with AI, ChatGPT and all this. I know you have commented something about OpenAI when you need to do some copywriting. What do you think are the opportunities that AI can provide in this space of digital marketing? And the last one is, what would you recommend for startup business in regard to digital marketing, especially on low budget? And how do you deal with cyberbullying or negative feedback? I think you can just scan through those questions. I have one myself, and probably Mr. Muthuri can comment on. Some of us are not running travel agencies. Some of us are consultants in this space. How do you think, professionals who are offering this as a service would leverage from digital marketing, and how can you use digital marketing, to improve your brand as a consultant? Thank you so much.
Okay, those are many questions. Well, let me start with the last one. If you're consulting in the space, of course, thought leadership is why people buy your services. It means you're articulating your impact, outcomes, results. Your customers are also happy to allow you to use their case studies. So the models are maybe different. In the consulting practice, maybe a case study matters more than a review. A testimonial from your customers has a lot more weight if they allow you to use it in your PowerPoint presentation, or do a video of that highlighting that work. Pitching an opinion editorial in a national news allows you to maybe front your thinking around a topical matter. Having a blog where you publish some insightful articles around the areas of your practice, forums like this that you could speak to will allow you to build your brand, because again, personal branding is critical. to that kind of, to that line of work. Now, maybe I'll do a current, a short demo of Tripesa. I don't know whether you can see my screen. Eh? You can, eh?
Yes, you can.
Yes. So as I said, Tripesa is a software as a service platform. Now, majority of our customers are looking for low-cost ways of, developing websites. Now, they are able to then come on, depending on the nature of their business. If they're a hotel, if they are a tour operator, if you're a tour guide, if you're an event organizer, these are themes that I'm showing you that are for like a tour business. So you're able to come and quickly look at these templates, pick the one that you perhaps like. You can preview them. So this allows you to quickly switch. We also have payments integrated on the site. So you go to collect payments in dollars or in various other currencies. When it comes to inventory, you can add, and this allows you to also convert your money. So it has an FX functionality. So if you're receiving dollars, but you have like a multi-country trip, you can do, settle your local suppliers in Kenya shillings and in Uganda. This also allows you, Tripesa also allows you to quickly just add your inventory. So if these are, if your hotel, you're, selling rooms, if you're tour operator, you're, you're selling tours and other things or car hire. So you can quickly create that on Tripesa. The other key thing that we allow you is you're able to see and track your bookings and seeing like who's arriving when, the rooms, events, and services that you offer. So you can see your calendar, and this allows you to either export to, something else. If you need to send like payment reminders, look at your occupancy levels, such and such things. The services element allows you to, maybe your multifaceted business. So you offer different services. Again, you can, you can add services. The key thing about Tripesa is what would take you maybe 3 months to develop, a lot more in dollars, you're easily able to come and do it here in a day if you have the content and copy and you can easily do it yourself. Is this for everyone? Of course not. But if you're trying to, you're hosting a conference and you don't want to really spend a lot of time building a whole website, you can quickly come and, ticket that conference on this platform. If you are doing tours for delegates and other services, you could as well just create a simple website that has that. Sometimes even as a hotel, maybe you want to create an ecosystem where people can book tours or buy stuff from the local community, or directly connect them to certain micro experiences. You could simply have this. It's not core of your website, but you want to have an extension that integrates other people for sustainability, perhaps. So Tripesa is built for that. We've worked with county governments like Nandi to build them, like a Visit Nandi marketplace for them to, showcase what they have across the destination, So this would have taken many, many months. It's very easy to now come up with that. What was the other question?
Yeah, the other question was like whether flyers and brochures are dead, or whether there's still space for that.
Absolutely not. Marketing is just evolving. People back in the day were using smoke signals. We don't use them now. But the person passing by your desk, maybe at an exhibition, will probably want something they can read. If you're passing by a B2B client or a B2G client, they still need you to print out stuff, live with them. I don't like saying that digital marketing is the do or die. I would always say there are still people who are reading newspapers and media houses that do newspapers, and they publish daily. There are still people who listen to radio, so there is still an audience on there. You have to understand where your customer is at. So if you give that flyer to the wrong person, they still won't. You still will not have communicated. We are trying to communicate something. We are trying to pass a message across. Not everyone is on these platforms. Not everyone is on there daily. Not everyone will catch up with what you posted on YouTube. But they may watch 9 o'clock news and any other ads that ran before that. The thing with digital space is that flexibility. You can do a lot without a lot of resources, allows you to experiment, learn from your mistakes. But if you put a billboard for 30 days and it has no impact, you're only going to be able to do something different, perhaps after 45 days, because you've already paid for that. By the time you're trying to change what was on there, it's been 2 months. With digital, if you post something and it's not resonating well, you can course correct by the weekend. You can pull the plug. You can pause if right now people, you're not gonna promote yourself a lot in this kind of mood in the country, for example. So that's the thing with digital. So I don't want to say understand your marketing mix. That's why I said when we were when you're even hosting media, have a mix, because some of your stakeholders will appreciate more of the print coverage. Others trust TV. Others are okay with digital or understand it. So it's always good to have that mix, But for purposes of this, also look at ROI, where are you going to give out these flyers, Are your customers there, if you're giving them away around where your property is located because you have added a new service, or you're doing a mall activation, well and good, they may work, so let me not say they don't, because there are businesses that have, still do print advertising, huko nyuma, na kuna hoteli bado wanaweka hapo, na kuna watu wanazisomanga na wana book, so it's the message. It's also knowing who you're targeting is at.
Yeah, the next question was about AI and the space of AI digital marketing and probably the tools.
There are several things there. One, I would like to, of course, say AI as, automation is key, AI will make the people who are not as competent, maybe, if you can do your social media content in 2 hours, schedule it, and you're done. Why do you need a community manager to, come spend weeks, doing the same, and you correct it and all that? Is there, of course, there is the issue of, we've seen like AI generated images. People will ask, is that ethical? But again, remember, you're trying to just maybe do things quickly. So there is a space for it, but then there's also the space where us as human beings, or us as, yourself as professionals, fit in. One of the skills I think that is emerging is people that are able to use AI correctly or in the right way. I don't know whether that's the right way of putting it, but you get outputs based on the prompts you fit in, you put in. So AI has a space. It's adding efficiency to things that were taking days or weeks. You can go on Canva quickly, and you have your entire content for the month on there. There are tools, for example, ChatGPT, that will give you blogs and such things that you can tailor and then customize for the voice and tone of your brand quickly. But ultimately, I think even the people you're working with are already using these things. I have no problem with it. I think that's where the world is already at. But there is always gonna be the space for, genuine, creative, the fundamentals of production. A good designer will remain a good designer. A good video editor will always be a good video editor. A bad writer might be replaced by AI, but still also a good writer will still be able to do work. Now, when it comes to efficiency, of course, what would take a day or two can now be done in a few seconds, using these tools. The debate, of course, is where does that lead us as, professionals? But this is just part of the things in our armory to use, partly to survive, but also partly to do the kind of work, but also mostly to do more important work. Because if your drafting content was taking you a week to do a monthly calendar, and now because of this, it takes you a day, then you're able to now focus on other tasks, like doing longer blog form content. You're spending a lot more engaging your customers. So it's okay to use.
Okay. Thank you so much. There are quite a number of questions about dealing with the negative feedback. I think you had lightly touched about that. You will definitely see negative feedback when you performing campaigns. Yeah, Abigail would like to know what is the best digital marketing strategy for national parks and reserves. Those are strategic assets as far as tourism is concerned. Kasim Deche would like to know the measure of success of digital marketing. I think you had talked about that. But secondly is how to secure data that has been shared on these platforms? What are the data breach risks that digital marketing provides? Maybe you can touch those as we try to wrap up.
Okay. Data security. One, of course, third-party platforms have the existential threats, and recovery is always subject to the tools and timelines. So sometimes people have been hacked. They were not able to recover that account, in a day or two. Sometimes it's been gone. Others have, because of maybe copyright claims, they've lost a YouTube channel because maybe they used some music that wasn't, theirs, and someone has, done a copyright strike. And this is why we need to have a mix of both own channels, like where you've centralized your marketing, or decentralized. This is like a website. Because a Facebook page, yes, it's real estate that you have access to, but Facebook might change its algorithm. You might be compromised. So I see a lot of times people who are trying to also ensure they have a lot more control over the platforms they invest in. The second thing was, of course, is a direct customer is a cheaper customer. You retain more value when you get direct booking. So if you're getting your customers on these other places, it means there is a cost to participate, or to beat the algorithm. Now, with data security, of course, then this is just cybersecurity broadly. Have things like two-factor authentication to ensure, you have some form of security in case there are threats. Monitor these phishing attacks, because sometimes you just get emails, click on them. Do a bit of training in-house, because a lot of it is social engineering. People clicked, open something, and, emails, all those things customer data has been leaked. The other thing is to always also, when you're working with contractors, is to give them limited access to, you don't open your entire backdoor digital infrastructure just because, someone has come to consult with you. I've also seen cases where someone worked for an organization and took over their accounts, and they had to, create new ones, for example. So think of ways, or rather, if you can limit access, you have admins, you have moderators, you have editors, such things. You can give someone limited access. If they're coming on to promote something for you and they have to be on the other side, you don't have to give them the full access, such and such things. How does one measure the impact of digital marketing? I would always go with, what are your business objectives? If it was occupancy, if it was a certain metric, it needs to be a certain commercial element. Because when it comes to things like, of course, digital metrics like engagement, impressions, all those things are good. But you need to look at your partners as success partners, because you're being evaluated on things like sales, revenue growth, all those things. So ensure you're also communicating in your briefs some of those elements, because your work is being evaluated on also certain tangible outcomes. Now, the second thing is e-commerce as itself needs to have, again, there is that commerce. So it's not just the content. It's what have we gotten directly? What are we getting from third-party channels? What are we getting from different distribution channels? So don't look at it from just an isolated social media, because you might never tell what social media gave to the basket. That's why I said allocate budget either based on a percentage of revenue, spread it to different activities, ensure the assets can be utilized across different campaigns. So if you needed to have flyers, you can pick some from that library, use them if you needed some for the website. So you have shared assets. When you have that kind of a thing, then it's very easy to now say, we're able to support the business in these ways. But you can track, search, for example, website impressions, website traffic. It grew by this. What impressions did we have on our hashtag, for example, during this period that you worked with a particular influencer? Was there growth? What did our audience grow to, in these 3 months? So you can have certain metrics that also evaluates ROI on the digital realm only, because maybe a social media intern might just be, you've given them grow these channels by 10% week on week. So if they've been able to grow them, they've sort of done part of their job. There is also someone else who is in product development who has to optimize that website for ranking. There is someone else who has to provide them competitive rates to ensure that they are converting, So don't look at it as a corner thing. Those are the digital guys. There has to be integration across the business units, that you have your revenue centers, and how does digital then support these revenue centers? Yeah. How much did it cost to develop a website like Visit Nandi? This takes a bit of time because of the work we have to do something like we had to be there on the ground to do a UX workshop. We had to go around the county documenting content. Then we have to develop the site and then all that. So it could be somewhere between 10K US going up based on the scope of work and deliverables. Also, when we build, then we don't just leave you to it. There is also other support activities on destination marketing. So it's always a continuous journey. So hiyo tunaweza ongea kando. Yeah.
Someone says that they would like partnership for Turkana Festival. That's brilliant.
Yeah, Turkana is where we've done a lot of work that side. We've covered a lot of 2 or 3 of their festivals to Bonglore. So it's always a good time going back. Do you have regulations in this space? Yes, we have the Data Protection Act, I think, of 2019. So you have to also be careful. You saw things like when clubs have photographers, you've been to events. So ensure you're not just taking photos of people and publishing them. You have to maybe have some signage by saying, by entering this space, you agree to ABC. Or you can have no photography zone. So if you're on the other side, and you're okay for us to take photos of you and use them for our marketing. You may also have customers who are coming from areas where, you have things like the GDPR, so they don't expect you to add them to an newsletter after their trip because you've served them. So always, I think, did someone opt in? Have they allowed you to, sometimes you have payments data and then you decide to SMS those customers, you blast them with an offer, you blast them with a happy Madaraka Day. You might find someone who is out to, why are you sending me this? So there are regulations and there are laws, people have been charged even for misuse of gadgets, so there are laws that, but the data protection one is the key one. And if you end up there, then fines are not as predetermined. So you could be fined 300K, someone 500, yeah, there are laws.
I think we are doing well. There is no other questions that have come through the chat. Is there anyone who would like to unmute and maybe, even if it is not a question, just probably share something revolving around what you are talking about today? Something that has worked in the course of your profession. Yeah, that's the whole purpose. We are here to share knowledge and go home even with tricks. Any person, feel free to unmute. I think we have removed that restriction. Just unmute and make that comment. Going once. Going twice. Okay. If there is none, it is exactly 8 p.m. and we hope it has been a wonderful session. We are really glad that you made time for this. And we know we are growing in all our facets of our profession, whether we are teachers, whether we are lecturers. Digital marketing is something that even our graduates, will need to have these skills, because this is here to stay, and these are competencies that everyone needs to have across all sectors of our tourism industry. I don't have anything to say. I would just ask Carol or Robert to share the feedback. It is important that we get your feedback so that even as we continue to curate. Yes, Kevin Yamai, you have something to say? Yes, Kevin, you can unmute. Kevin Yamai, you can unmute and go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. And mine is just to appreciate so much our keynote speaker for touching so much on issues of how one can expand its market segment, and how those businesses that you think you cannot reach your customers, you are now aware that you can go and grow your business. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we could not talk because we are in a very noisy place. But thank you for the turn up, and I want to say asante sana kwa kila mtu ambaye alilipa na TPA is the place. Thank you very much, Chairman, for the coordination. May God bless you. Greetings from Mombasa. Very good night.
Wonderful. Yeah, Mr. Kevin Nyamai serves at the Education and Training Committee, and he's the one who has put actually this together. We have tasked him to coordinate all webinars and online learning. Yeah, I was about to say that thank you so much. Robert has shared a form. Kindly give us feedback so that as we continue to curate these learning sessions, we do it, we are data driven even as an association, and we continue to, to meet you at the point of need. Thank you so much, Muthuri. I don't know whether if you can project your number. Some of you, as you have seen, some of us might want to reach you, even in private capacity to consult for them or even work for their destinations. I don't know whether you can post your number on the chat, or if you have a slide that has your contacts, that will also be helpful. Now that we don't have anything else, I think we are going to close the webinar at that. But feel free. Make sure, yes, Mr. Muthuri has shared his contacts on the chat. You can kindly reach out to him through email and phone number. And thank you so much for that. Having said that, we would like to declare the webinar closed. I think we have done well with time. We were not rushed, and I think we have managed to cover most of the things. We'll be able to share this recording with us, and I'll ask the secretary to look for modality to do. And thank you so much. Please don't forget to give us the feedback on the form that has been provided. Asante sana.
Asante sana.